All right, welcome to this advanced explainer. Today, we're really going to elevate our understanding of marine biology by exploring the spectacular and honestly, often entirely unseen world of aquatic ecology. I'm incredibly excited to guide you through this because we're diving straight into university-level concepts that will absolutely change how you view the ocean.
So what if some of the most important organisms on Earth are ones you can barely even see? You know, when we think of the ocean, we usually picture whales, sharks, or massive coral reefs. But what if the organisms that fundamentally drive our global ecological systems, the ones that literally make life on Earth possible, are largely invisible to the naked eye? Well, today we're going to explore the pelagic zone, uncovering a staggering reality where individual, microscopic organisms exert a massive global influence. It's a world where the tiniest entities dictate the fate of the largest.
Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll explore the world of the drifter. 2. Defining the water column. 3. The 4 major functional groups. 4. Diatoms and carbon transport. 5. Dinoflagellates. And finally 6. Zooplankton and ecosystem consumers.
Okay, let's jump right into Section 1, the world of the drifter.
The origin of the word itself tells a really cool story. Plankton comes from the Greek word planktos, which literally translates to wanderer or drifter. And the crucial point here is that plankton are defined not by their taxonomy or their species or even their size, but entirely by their ecological relationship with water currents. Basically, if you live in the pelagic zone and you cannot powerfully swim against the ocean's currents, you are, by definition, plankton.
And that brings us to a massive misconception. Plankton doesn't just mean tiny. The scale in the pelagic zone is absolutely staggering. We're talking about organisms ranging from marine viruses, which are less than 0.2 micrometers, all the way up to large jellyfish like siphonophores that can stretch for several meters. That's literally longer than a whale. But despite its massive size, that jellyfish is completely at the mercy of the current, so it's plankton. In stark contrast, a massive sunfish, or mola mola, is an actively swimming organism.
Moving on to Section 2. Defining the water column.
To truly understand this ecosystem, we have to break the water column down logically. First up, we have cestin, which is the totality of all particulate matter in the water. We can divide cestin into 2 distinct categories: tryptin, which is the non-living material, and plankton, the living cestin adapted to live in quasi-suspension. And then, completely separate from plankton, we have nekton. These are the strongly self-propelled animals, like that sunfish we just talked about or a great white shark.
Putting these two side by step, we can clearly distinguish how swimming ability determines an organism's ecological fate. Think about it this way. If your powers of motility, your ability to move, do not exceed the turbulent entrainment of the water around you, you are plankton. You're at the mercy of the drift. But if your intrinsic movements are almost entirely independent of that turbulence, allowing you to go wherever you please, then you're nekton.
Now for Section 3. 4 major functional groups.
Energy flows through the ocean in a highly structured way. We start off with phytoplankton, the autotrophs pulling in sunlight. Then we have zooplankton, the consumers that eat other plankton. But a robust, universally level understanding of this topic has to include bacterioplankton, the essential nutrient cyclers, and an incredible modern hybrid category known as mixoplankton.
We absolutely cannot overstate the importance of bacterioplankton. Made up of bacteria and archaea, these organisms are foundational for decomposing and remineralizing organic material as it slowly sinks down the water column. Species like the photosynthetic cyanobacteria, Synechococcus, and Pelobacter, also known as SAR11, are vital cogs in marine nutrient cycling.
Which brings us to a really cutting-edge insight in aquatic ecology: mixotrophy. Instead of just being an autotroph that strictly relies on photosynthesis or a heterotroph that strictly relies on consumption, mixoplankton literally combine both. It's wild. These are protists that can photosynthesize like a plant, but then turn right around to hunt and consume prey like an animal. It's an extraordinary evolutionary survival strategy used by a lot of dinoflagellates and ciliates.
All right, let's dive into Section 4, diatoms and carbon transport.
Diatoms belong to the class Basilaриophyceae. They are essentially the fast-growing weeds of the sea, completely dominating turbulent, nutrient-rich environments like coastal upwelling zones. But their most crucial anatomical feature is that these unicellular organisms are encased in a heavy, glass-like cell wall made of silica. It's called a frustule. Alongside pigments like fucosanthin, which gives them this beautiful golden-brown color, This heavy silica armor actually dictates their entire ecological destiny.
Because, you see, that silica shell is incredibly heavy. So when diatoms die, they sink rapidly out of the surface waters. This single trait makes them a massive driver of the biological carbon pump, and this matters deeply to all of us. They pull atmospheric CO2 down during photosynthesis, convert it into biomass, and then act as heavily weighted sinking particles. They transport that carbon deep into the ocean abyss, locking it away from our atmosphere and literally helping regulate the Earth's climate.
Section 5. Dinoflagellates, Masters of Strategy.
If diatoms are the weeds, dinoflagellates are essentially the sci-fi superorganisms of the ocean. They have two flagella that give them a really unique way of moving. Many are clad in intricate armor made of cellulose plates called a theca. They utilize the pigment peridinin, and as we mentioned earlier, many are masterful mixotrophs. However, when conditions are just right, they can trigger harmful algal blooms, famously known as red tides, producing deadly neurotoxins like saxitoxin. But on the flip side, they're also responsible for the stunning bioluminescence that makes ocean waves glow bright blue at night.
Beyond diatoms and dinoflagellates, we really have to acknowledge a couple of other massive players. Cyanobacteria, like Prochlorococcus, are phytoplankton that completely dominate nutrient-poor oligotrophic gyres because of their high surface area to volume ratio. Some even fix atmospheric nitrogen. Then you have coccolithophores, which cover themselves in calcium carbonate plates called coccoliths. When they bloom, their highly reflective calcite plates drastically alter the Earth's albedo. We're talking massive turquoise swirls in the ocean that you can literally see from space satellites. Just look at the sheer visual beauty, the intricate morphological variety, and the extreme diversity of survival strategies present in phytoplankton. It is truly stunning. From long interlocking chains to spherical armored cells, these microscopic primary producers form the undisputed base of the entire aquatic food web. Finally, Section 6, Zooplankton and Ecosystem Consumers. The absolute master trait when it comes to understanding zooplankton ecology is size. As proposed by Seaberth and his colleagues, we use a logarithmic scale to organize this world. Size directly influences an organism's metabolic rate, their sinking speed, and quite literally, who can eat whom on this logarithmic pyramid. At the very bottom, we have marine viruses in the Phytoplankton class. Then we move back through pico, nano, and microplankton, all the way to mesoplankton like copepods, and finally the megaplankton, which includes our massive, meter-long jellyfish. When we categorize these zooplankton consumers, understanding their life history strategies is key. We basically separate them into two groups. Holoplankton are permanent members of the plankton community. Organisms like copepods and chiatinographs drift for their entire life cycle. Meroplankton, however, are just temporary visitors. These are the larval stages of benthic organisms like sea stars or nectonic animals like fish eggs and larvae. They use the planktonic drifting stage simply as a strategy for widespread dispersal and colonization before they grow up and settle elsewhere.
Let's look at a few of the major players here. For metazoans, the multicellular animals, copepods are absolutely paramount. They are holoplanktonic crustaceans often called the cattle of the sea. They're the primary herbivores controlling massive phytoplankton blooms, and they serve as major fish food. Then you have krill, or euphausiids. These swarming crustaceans are the critical link in high-latitude systems, directly feeding baleen whales, seals, and penguins. We've also got gelatinous zooplankton, like jellyfish and salps, which are voracious predators despite their incredibly high water content. And we definitely can't forget the protozoan zooplankton, like ciliates and foraminifera. These act as microscopic grazers, forming an essential link between the tiny microbial loop and the larger metazoans.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. We started out today by looking at a single drop of ocean water, but we've uncovered a global engine. From diatoms sinking carbon deep into the abyss, to dinoflagellates lighting up the night, to copepods feeding the largest whales to ever exist, if these microscopic drifters engineer our atmosphere, dictate the carbon cargo of our ocean currents, and build the very foundation of our global food webs, are they the true rulers of the Earth? Thank you so much for exploring the invisible drivers of the ocean with me today. Stay curious, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.